This is for the culture.
What's up, everybody? It is Dr. CI, and I am back in the building. Welcome to For the Culture, y'all. Now, if many of you don't know me, For the Culture is a special where I talk about different issues that surround the Black community. Talk about the main thing, which is what is the overall premise. Secondly, I talk about what it is that we know to be truth, and then I give you solutions. And I forgot, I also give you the problem. So the problem comes after the main thing. So I'm gonna restate it. Again, it's the main thing, the problem, what it is that we know to be true, and then some solutions. Today, I'm gonna be talking about why it's so important for us to vote, but also I want to encourage those of you in Georgia who are going to vote in the Senate runoff to please get out and vote, because we need your votes now more than ever. Y'all have shown up in this previous presidential election. Shout out to Stacey Abrams and many other people who really worked to ensure that Black people and underrepresented populations were voting. And we need you again. Now, what's the main thing? Why am I talking about voting? The main thing here is that Black people are voting and we're showing up in record numbers, and that is extremely important. But for some of y'all that are like, I don't know whether I should vote, I don't really trust the system, I'm not here to tell you that you're wrong. I get you. I get why you don't trust the system, right? I understand that. So I'm not going to tell you directly to go vote, but I'm going to give you some insight into why it's important that we vote. But I also want people who are not Black, for example, in our communities, to watch this and say, okay, I understand that the system needs to change, and here's how we're going to do it, right? I'm just going to offer a couple of solutions regarding change. But first, I want to talk about the actual problem. The problem is that voting doesn't always equate to our freedom. Right? So many of us don't trust the system because we don't believe that it works in our favor, even if we do vote. How many times have you heard one of your Black friends or even someone of a younger generation say, my vote don't count, I ain't gonna vote, right? That's because in our communities, we haven't seen the system show up and turn shit around for us in the same way that it does for others. And so we haven't trusted the system. And I get that, right? And also, we understand that the system doesn't always work in our favor. Like, for example, previously, CNN just broke the news that Donald Trump was trying to steal votes in Georgia, right? I mean, he's snatching pussy. He's stealing votes. He trying to. We get it. Get your ass up out of office. Got it, right? Now, let me move on so that people can understand the problem of why it is that we don't vote and what has led to that. So in 1868, Congress passed the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, which gave slaves, especially runaway slaves and freed slaves, I should say, citizenship. Because remember, what it did was it gave people the right to become a citizen. It gave slaves the right to become citizens. Well, even when they became citizens in 1868, they could not vote, right? And even when you made us citizens, you have to remember that many of our ancestors still existed on plantations because of things like sharecropping, not having anywhere to go, right? Understanding that America was still a very racist place and that a Black person could be caught anywhere, any moment, and lynched, and justice would never happen. You get that? So when you passed the 14th Amendment, you said, okay, we're going to make you citizens, but we still not going to give you all the rights the white people in this country have. Then in 1870, they passed the 15th Amendment. What the 15th Amendment did was it gave us the right to vote. It gave our ancestors the right to vote, right? And so we said, okay, great. Now we got the right to vote. First you made us citizens, then you gave us the right to vote. But guess what? And here's another problem. Black people still couldn't vote. One, because there was such a thing called the grandfather clause that was struck down by the Supreme Court in 1915. And even poll tax. Right? I remember watching a documentary where one of my ancestors went to go vote, and the man handed him this long document and said, if you can read this and tell me what it means, you can vote. Well, guess what? Slaves were forbidden from reading. So now you got systemic racism that says, I know that you got released and you now a free person, but I know you can't read. So I'm going to instill this policy that says, if you can't read this and tell me what it means and process it, you don't get to vote. We grew up hearing those stories. We know those stories. Then you created poll taxes in this country that said you got to pay to vote, right? and coming out of slavery with no jobs and only the skills that people had given us in slavery, for example, and you expected us to be able to vote. Now, remember, of course, before Africans came to America, they had many trades, right? Kings, queens, carpenters, doctors, etc., that were put into slavery. And then when they got into slavery, they became dehumanized by white people and were no longer seen as human and stripped of all of their rights. Now, that was what? 200 and some years ago, before the 14th Amendment even happened, over 200 years ago, right? So in the 1600s, when slavery first came to the States, that means that most of the people that they brought over who even had trades, etc., that were our ancestors, died before the 14th and 15th Amendment. And so their children were learning to be slaves, right? Their children, our ancestors, were learning how to be slaves. They wasn't teaching them life skills or how to survive in a racist ass country that would kill you because of your color. And so because of that, those stories have been passed down to us. We've seen that. And even here now we are in 2021 thinking about the fact that the system doesn't always change at the pace that we needed to create equitable rights for our people. So some of our community doesn't vote. But you need to. And here's why I'm saying that, because it's important that you get out and vote, because unfortunately we live in a place where progress doesn't happen until we express our pain. It's always been like that, whether it's a protest in some way, shape, or form. And so because of that, our communities see our pain and see, oh, you don't move until we hurting. Why should we trust your system? Why are you always doing intervention instead of prevention for us? But the truth of the matter is that the system's not going to change unless we get out and change it. Voting is one of many steps to do that, okay? Now let's talk about these solutions, because as we see, voting does matter, but we got to get more of us to understand that you got to get out and vote, but we also got to get the system that we don't trust to give us a reason to trust them even when we do vote, right? But I'm going to get back to the solutions. I digressed a little bit. Here's one solution that I have. I want the whole United States of America to reinstill the right for felons to vote, even ex-felons to vote. Because in many states, felons and ex-felons cannot vote, right? If you have a criminal record, you cannot vote. That is wrong. I mean, first of all, we ain't gonna talk about the industrial or the prison pipeline for African Americans, people who are wrongly convicted and people who are overly convicted of minor crimes that don't have the right representation because they can't afford it, that have to go sit behind bars. What I'm saying to you is, one, you need to release those people, but that's a different topic for the culture for another episode. But what I am saying is, if you really want to do some reform, you really want to break down systems, why not put voting polls in prisons? Why not take the time to allow people with records, criminal records, to vote? We know that disproportionately Black communities and people are impacted by the system. African American men, African American women, African American LGBTQ plus populations, all of the intersections. So if you really want to change the system, do something outrageous, like putting voting polls in prisons and letting prisoners vote, letting ex-felons vote. And I also have some resources for you in the description. For example, if you are an ex-felon, then you can understand what it means to go back and fight for your rights so that you can have the right to vote depending on what state you live in. Because most of y'all don't know that that's available to y'all, but it is. And the last but not least, the last solution I'm going to talk about is going to elementary schools, junior high schools and high school, or junior high schools and high school, and educating children about the history of voting and why it's so important to do it. Because this generation is our future, and we got to instill in them that voting is important, but you also have to create a system that shows them that it matters. And I mean children of all shapes, size, colors, backgrounds, ethnicities, etc. And I'm also saying it's probably time to lower the legal voting age to 16. It's time. Right? I'm going to just pause here for a minute and let all of those solutions that I talked about process in your mind. Now, again, I am Dr. CI, and this is For the Culture. I had to do a quick promo for my shirt. It says, I'm tired, you tired, we tired as fuck. This is from my company, Diverse City. The link is in our bio, and it will show you how to click on it so you can go purchase our merchandise, which is socially justice forward fashion. So go check us out. Make sure that you tune in, like, and share this video, because remember, this is Dr. CI, and I am here for the culture. I'll see y'all soon.